Wiza Dadwan Buckman was born in 1988. By 2017, he was serving time at Pasquotank Correctional Institution in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. He was serving time for theft, carrying illegal weapons, and injuring others. But what he would do next was far worse. On October 12, 2017, around 3 p.m., Buckman and 3 other inmates, Michael Brady, Jonathan Monk, and Seth Frazier, tried to escape the prison. They set a fire inside the sewing workshop, where about 30 inmates worked under staff supervision. As smoke filled the building, they grabbed tools like scissors and hammers and turned them on the staff. 4 staff members lost their lives in the chaos. 10 others were seriously hurt. 4 inmates were also injured. In the end, the plan failed. None of the men made it out. Investigators later learned the plot had been in motion for months. They had chosen a Thursday, thinking security would be lighter later in the week. Their idea was to start a fire, create confusion, and overpower the staff before slipping away. Buckman's trial began on October 4, 2023 in Dare County. After about 5.5 hours of discussion, the jury found him responsible for 4 counts of first-degree homicide. On November 11, 2023, he was sentenced to capital punishment. The jury said the level of planning and the loss of 4 lives made the sentence necessary. Next is a man whose desperate spree left a quiet town in shock. James Edward Mckame was born in 1968. He lived in Columbus County. Before 2016, James Edward Mckame had a long criminal record. He had been convicted of illegal substance offenses, theft, and harming others. But in late August 2016, Mckame went on a spree that left his community stunned. On August 29th, he approached Rashanta Love outside her home in Whiteville and asked for a ride. During the trip, he pulled a sharp object and used it repeatedly, cutting her arms, head, and chest. Despite her injuries, Love fought back. She managed to drive herself to the hospital for help. The next day, August 30th, Mckame went to the home of Carol Greer, a 66-year-old retired music teacher well known for her work with children at Whiteville Primary School. There, he used the weapon again, ending her life. He moved her body behind a storage building on the property. Then he stole her 2012 Subaru and fled the scene. Investigators believe Mckame was desperate for money or a car, but he never gave a clear reason for what he did. Police caught him soon after. A traffic stop in Brunswick County led to his arrest. Officers quickly linked him to both incidents through the stolen car and other evidence. At trial, prosecutors described the harshness of his actions. The jury found him guilty. Since 2006, North Carolina has paused all capital sentences due to ongoing legal challenges. Like many states, the use of the ultimate penalty had become less common. On January 26, 2023, after just about an hour of deliberation, the jury decided that Mckame would face capital punishment. He also received additional prison time for the other charges to be served at the same time. As of April 2025, Mckame remains at Central Prison in Raleigh, with his sentence still under the statewide pause. The next individual was supposed to protect his father, but what he did instead will haunt you. Joshua Lee Burgess was born in 1987. He lived in Monroe, North Carolina. On August 18, 2019, his 15-year-old daughter came to visit for the weekend. What should have been a normal visit turned into a long, terrifying ordeal. Over about 22 hours, Burgess caused her deep emotional and physical harm. Later that same day, he ended her life inside his home. Investigators believe Burgess acted out of a need for control and personal gratification. After it happened, he walked into the Union County Sheriff's Office and confessed. He calmly gave officers his daughter's name and the location of her body. The trial lasted 3 weeks. After about 3 hours of discussion, the jury found him responsible for a first-degree homicide. The court gave him a capital sentence for the homicide. For additional charges, he received more than 76 years of prison time to be served afterward. Burgess showed little emotion during the trial. His confession and the overwhelming evidence left the jury with little doubt about what had happened inside that house. But what happens when someone ends the life of his own children? just for revenge. Thurman Freeman III was born in 1986. He lived in Fayetteville. Since 2004, he had convictions for theft, unwanted contact, breaking into buildings, and fraud. Family said white snow use may have driven some of his unsettling behavior. On March 24, 2017, his wife, Candace, went to the hospital alone, leaving their daughters, 2-year-old and 4 days old, in his care. When she returned, all 3 were gone. Freeman first said he left the children with someone who supplied illegal substances. He later admitted he took their lives to punish his wife for suspected unfaithfulness. Officials found Serenity and Genesis in a wooded area near NC Highway 211 and Army Road in Hoke County. Both had been struck multiple times with a hunting object. Freeman left them in his car and walked away. He pleaded guilty to 2 counts of first-degree homicide. North Carolina law then required a jury to decide the case's sentence. In April 2022, a Hoke County jury gave him capital punishment. Candace said she felt a deep sense of betrayal. She never thought he was capable of such an act. Freeman had a history of jealousy and control issues, according to family statements. How does someone entrusted with a life become the cause of its end? Jonathan Douglas Richardson was born in 1988. He grew up in North Carolina. His family life was unstable. His mother faced a high-profile trial for trying to harm his father. He lived in a small building behind his grandparents' home. The setting was tense and far from peaceful. In July 2010, Richardson was looking after his girlfriend's 4-year-old daughter, Tegan Skiba. Tegan's mother was away for Army Reserve training in New Mexico. Richardson had 10 days alone with Tegan. During that time, he caused her many injuries. On July 16th, he took her to Johnston Memorial Hospital. He said she had fallen from a bed. Doctors found cuts, bruises, bite marks, and a head wound. Tegan was moved to UNC Hospital. She passed away 3 days later, on July 19th. The autopsy showed a heavy blow to the head was the primary cause. Her body also had deep wounds, puncture marks, burns, and signs of mistreatment of a private kind. Richardson's claim that she fell did not match what the medical team saw. No one knows for sure why Richardson did this. Some people believe he wasn't ready to care for a young child. Others point to a history of bad behavior. Whatever the reason, the community was stunned. Richardson faced several legal charges, including first-degree homicide, felony child mistreatment, taking someone against their will, and an offense involving inappropriate contact with a child. In March 2014, a jury found him guilty on all counts. They spent less than 3 hours reviewing the facts. Then they recommended the maximum sentence allowed under state law. A judge confirmed this on April 3, 2014. Richardson was led away in handcuffs. Many people in the courtroom were in tears. A trial video showed Richardson telling his mother, "I loved her to the very end," referring to Tegan. That line was chilling. It highlighted how his words clashed with what happened to her. The state has not carried out such a sentence since 2006. Richardson remains in a high-security facility under the state's capital sentence procedures. But what if you risk it all just for a little bit of cash? Antoine Andre. Anthony was born in 1982 in Bethel, North Carolina. Details about his early life are limited, but records show a troubled path. In 2012, Anthony joined a theft spree. On April 1st, he and 3 others, Raekwon Terrell Blount, Xavier Shamble, and Willie Odell Whitehead Jr., entered the Hustle Mart in Farmville, North Carolina. They used a gun to carry out the theft. During that event, 3 employees lost their lives. 16-year-old Mokbel Sam Mohammed Al-Mujanahi, 26-year-old Nabil Nasser Saeed Al-Moganahi, and 24-year-old Gaber Alawi. Anthony was seen as the mastermind and the one who pulled the trigger. The theft was driven by money. They made it clear they cared more about money than human life. In 2016, a Pitt County jury found him guilty on all counts. His lawyers argued he had serious mental health issues, but the jury felt the proof was clear. On April 5, 2016, Anthony received the most severe sentence. This was the first time Pitt County had given this outcome since 2000. The jury spent 3 days deciding. His defense asked for a new trial, saying a jury member overheard improper comments from a sheriff's office worker. The judge said the comments didn't affect the verdict and denied the request. Anthony's team kept appealing, but as of the latest reports, his sentence still stands. He remains in the state's high-security section for those awaiting that outcome. David Godwin was born in 1991 in North Carolina. He grew up in the Newport area and had a history of minor legal issues. On July 4, 2016, Godwin went to the apartment of 37-year-old Wendy Tamagna in Morehead City. Tamagna was recently divorced and living at Country Club Apartments. She and Godwin were acquaintances. That night, Godwin took her life. He then dismembered her body and placed the remains into trash bags. After that fatal act, Godwin fled the state. He was later caught in Oregon. When officers arrested him, he said, "You guys are looking for me," admitting what he'd done. During the trial, prosecutors presented strong evidence of Godwin's actions. His defense team argued that he had mental health issues, citing a troubled childhood and mental illness. The jury found him guilty. On April 12, 2019, the jury gave him capital punishment. They decided this after weighing how extreme the case was. Siege Edward Gillard was born in 1988 on the Caribbean island of St. Lucia. He grew up speaking French patois as his first language and later learned English. Gillard moved to the United States, where he has been involved in several illegal activities. On December 2, 2016, Gillard and his accomplice, Brandon Hill, entered a motel room in Raleigh. Inside were April Holland, 22 and pregnant, and her boyfriend, Dwayne Garvey. They shot both of them, taking their lives. Surveillance video and text messages tied Gillard to what happened. His internet searches, including "man wanted for shooting" and "how much can you face for double unaliving," showed he planned it ahead of time. He was arrested the next day. Charges included 2 counts of first-degree elimination, attempted theft with a firearm, and an attempted non-consensual act. The state said he targeted people working in low-budget hotels, robbing and harming them. His defense team said there wasn't enough proof for capital punishment. On March 4, 2019, after a 3-week trial, the jury found him guilty on all counts. They recommended the most severe sentence, the first in Wake County in over 10 years. The judge confirmed the recommendation. In December 2024, the North Carolina Supreme Court upheld it, rejecting Gillard's appeals about jury instructions and evidence. He remains in the state's high-security section for those awaiting that outcome. North Carolina has not carried out this outcome since 2006. But what happens when a case meant to deliver justice instead leaves behind even more doubts? Andrew Darren Ramser was born in 1988 in Statesville, North Carolina. Raised in a challenging environment marked by neglect and poverty, he faced numerous hardships during his early years. Despite efforts to turn his life around, including attempts to find stable employment and housing, Ramser struggled with addiction. On December 16, 2007, Ramser carried out a theft at a convenience store in Iredell County, North Carolina. During the incident, 2 white individuals, 71-year-old Jennifer Lee Vinchek and 56-year-old Jeffrey Robert Peck, passed away from gunshot wounds. The theft escalated into a case where 2 people lost their lives. He was charged with 2 counts of first-degree homicide and 1 count of theft with a dangerous weapon. The exact motive remains unclear. At first, it appeared to be a theft gone wrong. Some people speculated that racial bias played a role. Concrete evidence to support these ideas has not been made public. Ramser's trial began on May 10, 2010 in Iredell County. The atmosphere in the courtroom was tense. The first 4 rows behind the defense table were marked off with yellow incident tape. This decision raised questions about bias and fairness in the process. The prosecution presented forensic evidence and witness accounts linking Ramser to the incident. The defense asked for a less severe sentence. They pointed out Ramser's age and the possibility that he lacked intent. Despite these arguments, the jury found him guilty of first-degree homicide. On June 7, 2010, he was given a capital sentence. At that time, he became the youngest person in North Carolina's section for inmates awaiting capital sentences. The all-white jury's decision faced criticism. It led to debates about racial bias in the state's use of the most severe penalty. After his conviction, Ramser filed a motion under North Carolina's Racial Justice Act. He argued that race influenced the decision to seek and impose a capital sentence in his case. This claim was part of a broader effort by several inmates to challenge racial differences in capital sentencing. As of 2025, he remains about 38 years old and continues to await further legal developments. George T. Wilkerson was born in 1981 to a Korean mother and a white American father. He grew up in a home marked by instability and became involved with substance use and illegal activities early on. By age 41, he was one of North Carolina's inmates awaiting the state's highest sanction. On January 10, 2005, Wilkerson and his partners planned a theft during an illegal substance exchange with two men in Randleman, North Carolina. The situation turned into a horror movie, and Casey Dinoff and Christopher Von Cannon both lost their lives. Wilkerson had arranged the plan and directed the events that led to the fatal outcome. In December 2006, a jury found him guilty of 2 counts of first-degree intentional loss of life and 1 count of first-degree unlawful entry with intent to steal. They decided he acted with planning and clear intent and applied the rule that holds someone fully responsible when a life is lost. After a special hearing, the jury recommended the most severe punishment the state allows. Later, appeals courts reviewed the case and found no mistakes that would change the outcome. Today, he remains on row. Before the final sanction was set, Wilkerson spoke of his sorrow. He acknowledged the pain he caused the families and asked for their forgiveness. In his last statement, he pleaded for compassion, showing deep regret. Brian Garcel was born on January 22, 1986, to a Cuban father and a Puerto Rican mother. He grew up in Rutherford County, North Carolina, facing poverty and frequent upheaval. At 18, he and his girlfriend, Kaylee Proctor, lived in a mobile home owned by his half-sister and her partner. Both lacked steady jobs and struggled to make ends meet. In June 2004, Proctor suggested they target Margaret Hutchins Bennick, a 63-year-old woman who lived alone and worked part-time at a local clothing store. On June 29, 2004, Garcel, Proctor, and 2 others broke into Bennick's home and stole a VCR, jewelry, and an ATM card. During that break-in, Bennick lost her life. Afterwards, the group spent some of the stolen money on new clothes, tattoos, frozen pizzas, and a video game console showing little remorse. The case remained unsolved until Garcel's friend Nate Whiteside saw a news article and noticed Garcel's strange reaction. Confronted, Garcel admitted what happened and showed Whiteside the gun. Whiteside alerted authorities. Another friend, Francia Lopez, also became suspicious and told Garcel's family. In July 2004, a letter from Garcel to his mother surfaced, in which he predicted he would face the most severe penalty while Proctor would receive life. He asked his mother to take the blame so he and Proctor could marry and raise their child. Investigators found the stolen items at Garcel's mother's house and confirmed through surveillance footage that he used Bennick's ATM card. Garcel was arrested on July 3, 2004, and charged with first-degree intentional taking of life, theft with a dangerous weapon, and related counts. His 2007 trial featured his confession, the recovered items, and ATM records. The defense argued his youth and influence by others. Despite his age, the jury found him guilty and recommended the most severe penalty, noting the seriousness of the act and the lack of remorse. As of today, he remains on row, which North Carolina has not applied since 2006. Daryl Wayne Maness was born in 1985 in North Carolina. He grew up in a rough neighborhood. He never saw his father outside prison walls. In 1987, his dad was sent away for taking a police officer's life. Daryl was still a baby then. He visited his father a few times behind bars. Those visits shaped how he viewed officers. At 19, Daryl faced a serious encounter with officers. On January 18, 2005, Officer Mitchell Prince of the Boiling Spring Lakes Police Department stopped a gray Honda. Daryl was driving. Michael Brennan and Tia Isley were with him. The officer found the green leaf substance and an open drink container in the car. Things turned dangerous fast. Daryl drew a gun and fired at Officer Prince. The officer lost his life. It did not seem like a snap decision. It looked planned. Some say his father's history influenced him. Daryl faced several charges. They included first-degree unlawful taking of life, attempted unlawful taking of life, using a weapon to threaten with intent to cause serious harm, and armed theft. His trial began in 2006. On March 31st, the jury found him guilty of first-degree unlawful taking of life, saying he acted with malice and planning. They also convicted him on 2 counts of attempted unlawful taking of life and the other charges. The jury recommended the harshest penalty. The court agreed. His motive seems tied to his childhood. Growing up without a dad and visiting him in prison shaped his view of officers. That history and early exposure to mistreatment may have driven his choices. His actions that night mirrored his father's own past. He remains in a high-security prison in Raleigh, waiting for the outcome of his appeals. Visits take place through plexiglass, steel, and concrete barriers. Eddie Lamar Taylor grew up in Fayetteville. He took part in several thefts involving a weapon. He also caused harm to other people. In 2003, he and Tyrone Crawley planned to steal money from Mitch's grocery store. The owner, Talmadge Mitch Faciane Jr., tried to protect the store with a shotgun. During that confrontation, Faciane was shot and passed. Taylor and Crawley acted for money. They carried out the plan without warning. Faciane lost his life in that encounter. At trial, Taylor faced a charge of first-degree unlawful elimination. He also faced 2 counts of weapon-aided theft, 1 count of planning a theft, and 3 counts of unlawful detention. The jury decided Taylor planned the act to get money. They saw the eliminations as part of a series of harmful acts. Taylor's lawyers argued some evidence was gathered in the wrong way. They also argued he should not get the most severe sentence. The jury rejected those points. Judges kept that sentence after several appeals. When the sentence was carried out, Taylor was 35. His last words were, "I'm at peace. I'm ready to be at home. Let's ride, Warden." North Carolina no longer allows special meal requests for people under that sentence. Taylor did not receive a special last meal. Alexander Charles Pulk was born in 1980. There are limited details about his early life. In the quiet Randolph County, a sad event changed 2 families and local law officers forever. On February 7, 2005, Deputies Tony Clayton Summey and Nathan Hollingsworth went to Alexander Charles Polk's home. They had a warrant because he missed a court date. Alexander had a record of minor offenses. He answered the door. He got into a struggle with Deputy Summey. During that fight, he grabbed the deputy's gun. He fired the weapon, and Deputy Summey did not survive. Deputy Hollingsworth tried to step in. They traded gunshots at very close range. Alexander shot Hollingsworth in the arm, then he ran away. Police caught him shortly afterward. He was charged with the most serious offense and a count of trying to take a life. Prosecutors laid out all the facts. They showed the first shooting had no warning and led to Summey's loss. The defense did not contest what happened. They asked for a lighter sentence, noting Alexander's past and the possibility he could change. The jury reviewed the evidence and found him guilty on all counts. On February 7, 2005, the court gave him the highest sentence under state law. There is no public record of Alexander's final words or his last meal. That information may not have been released. He remains in prison under North Carolina's system for those with the highest terms. His case has gone through additional hearings, some looking at possible bias. As of now, his sentence has not been carried out and he awaits further legal decisions. Marcus DeCarlos Mitchell was born in the late 1970s in Wake County, North Carolina. He grew up surrounded by illegal activities and unrest, where trouble often played out right outside his door. As a teenager, Marcus became part of it, taking part in armed thefts and other serious offenses. His connection with Antonio Mitchell, Darren Ray, and Tildren Hunter only pulled him deeper. Together, they formed a dangerous group that would soon be tied to even worse behavior. On the night of March 3, 1997, Marcus and 3 others set out to steal guns from Dwayne Rogers' home in Zebulon, North Carolina. They dressed in black, wore ski masks and gloves, and carried handguns. Marcus stayed in the car at first while the others approached the house. When 14-year-old Damian Armstrong opened the door, Marcus rushed up and knocked him onto the porch. The group then forced their way inside. They grabbed the keys to Robin Watkins' car. In the living room, Marcus fired at Rogers and Watkins. Meanwhile, Ray led Armstrong to the back of the house and fired 5 shots. Rogers, Watkins, and Armstrong all lost their lives from their wounds. Armstrong's uncle, Gabriel Miles, heard gunfire and went to check. He found Rogers, Watkins, and Armstrong unresponsive. He called 911 right away. On March 8, 1997, Raleigh police officers searched a hotel room where Marcus had been staying. They took him into custody there. On April 1, 1997, prosecutors charged Marcus with 3 counts of first-degree homicide. They showed the jury that the plan had been made in advance. They also used a law that holds someone responsible if a loss of life happens during another serious, unlawful act. The jury found Marcus guilty on all counts. In the sentencing phase, they asked for the harshest punishment allowed by state law. The judge agreed and set those sentences. Since then, Marcus has been held at North Carolina's Central Prison under those sentences. Over the years, he has asked for better access to education for inmates facing the same level of punishment. He believes learning can help people change. In 2023, he started a study group to prepare for high school equivalency tests. It shows his ongoing focus on education. As of April 2025, he remains in prison under his sentences. No date has been set to carry out the harshest punishment. Daniel Cummings Jr. was born in 1965 in North Carolina. He grew up in a working-class home. As a child, he was active and seemed well-adjusted. He served in the Army. After that, he worked in construction. He provided for his family and was close with his children. In the early 1990s, he became addicted to white snow. This addiction changed the course of his life. Before the events that led to his convictions, his family said he had never shown bad behavior. In April 1994, Cummings was involved in 2 fatal incidents in North Carolina. On April 22, 1994, Cummings and an accomplice known only as Joe planned to take money and goods from Burns Babson's store in Ash. During the break-in, Cummings fired his gun. He ended Babson's life. He also fired at Babson's wife as she ran away. He later said he struggled with Babson over the weapon and took his wallet. 2 days later, on April 24th, Cummings broke into the house of 80-year-old Lena Hales in Red Springs. During that break-in, he ended her life. He then stole items from her home. In both cases, his aim appeared to be getting money to feed his addiction. On April 23, 1994, police stopped Cummings driving a stolen vehicle linked to several break-ins. During questioning, he admitted to both fatal incidents. The court found him guilty of first-degree homicide, armed theft, and intent to harm with a weapon. He received the maximum penalty under state law. He was found guilty of first-degree homicide under the felony rule, first-degree break-in, and theft. He received another maximum penalty. Cummings appealed both cases. The North Carolina Supreme Court upheld his sentences. As of April 2025, he remains in custody, awaiting the final outcome of his appeals. Blanch Kaiser Taylor Moore was born in 1933 in Concord, North Carolina. She was the fifth of 7 children. Her dad, Parker Davis Kaiser, worked in a mill and also served as a Baptist minister. Her mom was Flonnie Blanch Kaiser, née Honeycutt. Blanche's early years were hard. Her father drank heavily and was unfaithful. Blanch later said he forced her into selling her body to pay off his gambling debts. In 1952, Blanch married James Napoleon Taylor. He had served in the military and repaired furniture. They had 2 children together. In 1954, Blanch began working at Kroger as a cashier. By 1959, she had been promoted to head cashier. Things shifted when people close to Blanch fell ill or passed away under strange circumstances. First, her father passed away in 1966. Doctors at first blamed his heart, but when his body was checked again, high arsenic levels were found. Next, her mother-in-law, Isla Taylor, passed away in 1970. Examiners discovered arsenic in her remains. Blanche's first husband, James Taylor, passed away in 1973. Tests showed arsenic in his system at levels high enough to cause a passing. Then came Raymond Reed, Blanche's boyfriend. He fell ill and passed away in 1986. Doctors first thought it was a nerve disorder. Later, toxicology reports showed arsenic. Finally, Blanche married Reverend Dwight Moore. He grew very ill in 1989, shortly after their wedding. Tests found arsenic at 20 times the amount needed to cause a passing. He survived, but was left with lasting nerve damage. Why would Blanche do this? She seemed to have more than one reason. She tried to name herself as the main recipient of insurance and pension benefits. She may have wanted the money. She may also have wanted to remove people she saw as obstacles. The story took a big turn when Reverend Moore's illness led doctors to run full toxicology tests. They found more arsenic than anyone had seen before. Investigators decided to examine the remains of the others. They saw the same pattern of arsenic. On July 18, 1989, police took Blanche into custody. She faced charges for causing the passings of Reed and Taylor. She also faced charges for using a dangerous substance on Reverend Moore. Her trial began on October 21, 1990, in Winston-Salem. Blanche said she had done nothing wrong. The prosecution called 53 witnesses. They spoke about Blanche's role in Reed's care while he was in the hospital. On November 14, 1990, the jury decided she was responsible. They asked for the most severe punishment. On January 18, 1991, the judge agreed. Did Blanche ever admit what happened or say she was sorry? She has always maintained her innocence. Blanche is still held at the North Carolina Correctional Institution for Women. She is the oldest person in the state waiting to receive capital punishment. Only one other woman in North Carolina has that sentence. Blanche has health problems and has undergone chemotherapy and radiation treatment. Because her lawyers continue to appeal, and because the state has not carried out that punishment since 2006, Blanche has not faced that outcome for more than 30 years.